What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless engineer, and I critically analyze apologist claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Today's video is from the line. We're going to be hearing from a caller that's decided to call in and try to prove either God to us or some other kind of crazy idea. So, if you want to fuck around and find out how crazy this call gets, then please stay tuned.
Fantastic. Well, how's it going? I called in yesterday, I believe, with Aaron on the show, and he gave me a really good answer about just logic in terms, like what he would like to study in terms of philosophy. I don't know if you remember that, but I was calling in again just to see what your opinions would be on a morally righteous person, and what would that constitute?
A morally righteous person, probably one that isn't so damn judgmental.
Okay.
Well, so I actually put out a video on the morality argument today on my channel, and as far as being morally righteous, I think that we would need to kind of define what you mean by being righteous, because I get what you mean by being morally righteous. I typically, how I ground my moral foundation is in both empathy and humanism. So, like, I'm very empathetic to people in my community, in my society. And then, humanism, as far as like a worldview goes, like I definitely prioritize the health and well-being of, people, I guess, in my society and everything like that. So, like, I feel like anything that prioritizes or uses that uses both of those things, I think is going to make you, I guess, morally righteous. I feel like a lot of these topics concerning the moral argument is going to be very subjective, even from a theistic or any certain religious point of view. I think it's very subjective, and so we would need to actually examine certain situations that would come up. I think that it's like a case by case basis, like as far as what's the morally righteous sort of decision on something.
Okay, that makes sense. I've just been taking a few notes just so I can get a general idea and come back to it. So, Aaron, you were saying, in your eyes, a morally righteous person would start with something non-judgmental, you would say. Would that be correct?
Not quite so judgmental, no. Okay. I mean, the God of the Bible is not a righteous judge by any stretch. He punishes people for not knowing right from wrong, for the crime of finding out right from wrong. So they can't even be held accountable, and it's his fault. So he's not in a position that he can punish them. So he's entirely a villain in his own story.
I can see that. All the way through
Go ahead. No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. I can see what you're saying, and I really understand it. Like it makes sense. Like it fits like a puzzle piece. But there is just something that's hanging on, like some semblance of maybe wanting to believe, right? And I don't necessarily know how to honestly phrase it. But I'm trying to really really wanting to believe would be the best way of phrasing it.
I would have to say so. Yes. I mean, I believed in God because all the people I trusted told me there was a God. And I didn't know yet that I shouldn't trust these people who don't know what they're talking about. They always said that God is a conclusively proven scientific fact, and questioning whether a God exists was as crazy as questioning whether we really had a president. You can't prove that we have a president, so, not absolutely. Okay, fine.
I mean, I don't want to go as far as to say, God is real, because quite frankly, I don't know. And I think that a lot of the arguments that you guys, I've been watching the show for quite a while. I mean, really since I'm quite a bit older, but really since I was like 15. The atheist experience was what I started on with Matt Dillahunty. And it's, I see all the points, but maybe it is just a want to believe rather than the reason to believe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I didn't have a desire to believe. I believed because I trusted what I was told. For me, the desire is I don't want to be fooled into believing things that are not true. It's always maddening to me the many times that I found out that I had been lied to, that I believed something that it turned out to be false, that I believed someone who didn't know what they were talking about. Yeah, that's quite irritating. And one of the first things that I had to let go of was hell. I want to say I was 13 when I abandoned belief in hell, because there's
what taught you there? Like, what was this? Was it gradual?
Well, I mean, hell is inconsistent with God. I mean, there's no way a God would not create a place to mercilessly, savagely, vindictively torture you to the most extreme sense possible forever and ever and ever, and ruthlessly keep you alive to continue torturing you. This is not something a God would do. This is something a person would do when they're trying to sell you a bullshit story and you ain't buying it. If heaven didn't convince you, because look what happens with heaven. I mean, how many times you can tell somebody that, well, the streets are made of gold and we'll all live in mansions. I mean, the first thing you're going to ask is, well, gold doesn't have a lot of traction, and so I wouldn't want to be on that street. And why would we be in mansions? Why would we need shelter in heaven? It takes a couple of minutes to realize that heaven isn't so great a promise. And then when you start thinking about eternity, and that there's no way to end eternity, there's no way to get out of it. There's no way to say, I'm bored, I'm tired, I want to off it now. No, there's no getting out of this. You're stuck. You are trapped in the house with little Anthony Fremont for all of eternity, and you better be thinking nice thoughts. So there's that. So people started questioning heaven and realizing that heaven isn't a great thing. So they came up with hell. And it doesn't matter how long you think about hell continues to suck.
True.
Think about it as much as you want. Hell continues to suck, except when we have to consider that the evangelicals are all in heaven. And then we start thinking, as Mark Twain said, we start thinking as Mark Twain did, heaven for the climate, hell for the company.
Yeah, no joke. At least they have some banging music, right? Man, that's a realization that I've just come to tonight, and I really appreciate both your inputs. It's maybe it's the fact that I want to rather than I really do believe. Maybe it's just I'm holding on to the want. And
well, I was actually going to ask you, Matt, what do you constitute as a morally righteous person?
I discussed this with a friend of mine a little bit. And he asked me the same question: what do I consider to be morally righteous? What are the qualities that I would attribute to that? And honestly, I'm going to give you the biggest cop-out answer in the world. I don't know. That's why I'm asking other people. I think that's a good response to have. I mean, it shows that you're really carefully considering your position and everything like that. I know that a lot of theists out there, especially if they grew up Christian or they are Christian, like they pretty much just appeal to like what God says in the Bible or what they think or what's been presented to them that God has said in the Bible, or that certain moral statements are the pinnacle, of being a morally good person, and following that is blindly at times. Following that is what it means to be morally righteous. So I wasn't sure like where you landed on that. Like, I see where you're going with that. And I think morality and being a morally righteous person, I could say that the most I've been able to hammer down, and this might not seem like much to a lot of people, because I mean, a lot of people here are probably very used to thinking and going through these logical arguments in their head. I'm not. So the conclusion I came to is it has to do with one's actions at the very least. It actions and behavior correlate, right? Or actions and what you believe, right? And that's about as far as I've gotten with it. I've been trying to just go over it in my head, kind of be introspective about it, and it's a very tough. I mean, I just read Meno by Plato, and I thought maybe that's a good place to go for some type of answer. And it's like, no, it just made everything else just jumbled, all hell.
Well, so I don't know if this would help, but I know that I went into therapy, as an adult and everything. And one thing that my therapist said to me that really kind of stuck with me concerning like how my parents treated me and the experiences I had growing up was like, you're a father yourself. What would you think of somebody that treated you the way that your parents treated you? Like, what do you think that's would you treat your son that way? Would you do those kinds of things, to your son? And, I try to reframe a lot of these moral decisions in that light, like, not necessarily as a father, but just as a human being myself. Like, what would I ever consider, like, for instance, in Numbers 31 in the Bible, would I ever consider, sending a whole bunch of people to another town so that they can kill all of the fighting men and women and everything like that, that are not virgins, and then even the small babies and little boys, and then take all the virgin girls? Like, could I ever command people to do that, or would I ever want to go and do that? And I sort of reframe it in that kind of aspect, and I'm like, no, that's obviously a horrible thing to do. And so, like, that's how I came to the conclusion that, like, the God of the Bible, at least, is a very immoral character in the Bible, and that a lot of the things that a lot of Christians preach about this God are very cherry picked and really just illuminate what they consider, personally, to be like good and moral aspects. So it's really just them that's, cherry picking from their own religious faith what they think is good and moral, and then applying that to like their sense of morality and using God as an excuse. And so I feel like that's a pretty good way to, it's a good way of looking at like these moral decisions, and like whether or not like whatever you believe in is truly a morally righteous sort of position to have. And I think that if more people did that, they would be able to understand like what it means to be a good and moral person, at least to them.
I have one more question, and I appreciate the input. I really do. I've got plenty of good things to chew on here, like I said before. I've got one more question, and I'll let you guys go. Do you think it is possible for someone to simultaneously believe and understand what the Bible says and teaches, and to be a moral person, a morally righteous person in your eyes? Do you think there is a possibility that the bridge could be gapped there?
No, that's negotiable.
I feel like, sorry, Aaron,
the Bible is not. There are aspects of the Bible that you can call moral, but there's an awful lot of it that you just have to overlook. When God argues, when God demands that that genocides be performed, let's look at this. Not only is that wrong, is genocide just objectively wrong, but what's the reason for it? Because they didn't believe? Because they believed in that God? They didn't believe in this God. They didn't believe in our God. And so God knows how to make people believe, right? God would have that ability. Yeah. If it mattered to him so fucking much, he would stroll up there and say, "Hey, I'm God. Look at me," right? But no, doesn't do that. He plays the part of a fictitious character, of a cultural icon that is entirely imaginary, and the deaths that are ordered on all these people come from the men pretending to speak for God. So when Moses orders his people to slaughter the Midianites, kill everybody, kill all the old people, kill every woman and child. Oh, except for the preteen virgins. Those you can keep for yourself. Right? That's.
Can you do me a favor? Can you refer me to? I'm not terribly familiar with the Bible. I haven't read it through and through. Can you refer me to where that is so I can read it for myself and kind of make my own judgment on it?
If I remember correctly, that's Numbers 31.
Numbers 31. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Another fun section to look at is 1 Samuel 15. Because in there it specifically lays out exactly who the Israelites are supposed to kill, and it lays out that you're supposed to kill both men, women, young and old, and even livestock. And so it's very clear that God is ordering the Israelites to commit these atrocities.
Okay, I'm going to do some reading. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you for being here to answer my question. I know I'm not coming on making these massive claims and then we get into a big inflammatory argument, but I think it's really useful for me, at least, to kind of parse this out for me. I'm just trying to learn how to think. So
we totally want. Yes, we totally want to emphasize, carefully considering what you believe and why you believe it and all this other stuff, and committing to actually educating yourself about things that your local priest or pastor isn't going to educate you on, because they're not going to tell you about Numbers 31, or they're going to give you some kind of bullshit workaround for it. Because, and to answer your question earlier, I don't think that you can be honest about what's in the Bible and also prop the Bible up as some kind of moral foundation or some kind of example of a moral being. I feel like it would require you to either ignore some things, or it requires you to justify some objectively horrible and atrocious things. I feel like that's an actual dichotomy, a pure dichotomy that exists, because you've either got to justify the horrible actions or you've got to ignore them. It's one or the other. And so I feel like that is the case for anybody that's using the Bible or that is a Christian, that's trying to argue for any kind of morally righteous position. I feel like you have to do one of those two things.
That makes a lot of sense. Let me let you guys go and chew on this for a while. I'm sure I'll call back in, whenever you guys do a show again. I've called yesterday. I'm going to call again tomorrow. So you get how it is. But thank you guys so much.
Thanks for calling in, Matt.
No problem. Take it easy, guys.
Well, heathens, that's going to be it for this call today. If you want more of this kind of content, you can hit up the links down in the description to go and subscribe to The Line here on YouTube. We're always producing great live content where we take callers from people. We're also adding new shows all the time. So please go down there, subscribe to The Line so that you can get more of this kind of content. I'm not sure if this was 20 seconds or anything like that, but yada, yada, yada. Jimmy, go fuck yourself.